you are five men who know and love Jesus, and I speak for a lot of other people that we have watched and benefited from your knowledge and love, and that you've helped other people know and love Jesus through this paper in a lot of other ways. If you want to, would you take a couple of minutes and just give us some final reflections on your part in the paper, what you think the paper has done, the goals you had for it. You want to start?
No. I've said about all I know to say on the subject. I'm glad we did it. I believe, as Ed said a few moments ago, that it served a good purpose at a very good time, and we're thankful for whatever good it did, and regretful of any harm that was caused. But the harm was certainly unintentional, and the good was very much intentional as we sought to glorify God.
When I reflect on the numbers of times that people commented to me about this paper and what it meant to them over the years that we did it, and heard reports from these other men as to what they were hearing, I had no question but what we were doing good with it. And that's a wonderful thing to think about at this point.
There are lots of things that I think I could say about my association with the paper personally. Brother Earnhardt mentioned having learned some things. I learned a lot from these men about how to conduct yourself in the middle of difficult situations and controversies. And I wouldn't take anything for having learned that. But I learned more than that from these men, what it means to love the Lord and His truth. Because as I pointed out earlier, I never saw a time when I thought any one of the five was out of order in the feelings that he had about what needed to be done and the motive for which we were doing them. I thought it was always of the highest sort. And I must tell you that there could not be four fellows that I have a higher regard for or more love for than I do them, even when Ed does me like he does.
You learn to forgive him, maybe.
That's right. I've learned to forgive Ed.
Well, we had a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Our times together were really classic, and our families knitted together. So that personal side of it was really a great plus for us. And it was a selfless endeavor. I mean, as far as I know, nobody had any selfish motives. I don't think anybody was looking for career advancement or anything else. We pretty much stuck with what we were trying to do. As a historian, I would say that when I look back, I think Christianity Magazine did fulfill a fairly significant function in this 17-year period in non-institutional churches, and kind of giving a certain cohesion to what could have been it could have been a Summerite kind of movement. It could have become an extremely narrow-based factional movement. It has not become that. I believe non-institutional churches of Christ will, in another 25 years, be the largest segment of churches of Christ. I don't know how many of you read Christian Chronicle about the diminishing demographics in churches of Christ. The churches of Christ are actually shrinking at a remarkable rate. What that actually doesn't show is that the single group within that larger category that is growing pretty rapidly are non-institutional churches. So I think that just definitionally it'll be looked upon as a kind of a centrist expression in those days that could have been quite factious. Now, we're kind of through that period now. probably about to get into a new period of a different kind of factionalism.
I think it was a good endeavor. We still have people that tell us we miss the magazine.
Yeah.
One rather remarkable thing is, in papers, we know all the stories about editors getting crosswise and men that once were working together and suddenly they're at odds with each other. I cannot think of a single occasion when we ever had the least bit of that among us. We had discussions openly and agreed, disagreed about things, but none of it ever caused any kind of separation and I think it was because none of us had any ambition for ourselves in it. So we weren't struggling with each other to see who could be on the top rung. And we did do a whole lot to encourage one another. And we had times when that happened. Now, Ed was a little rough on me down in Jacksonville. And his sister Marilyn got after him about it, taking advantage of Brother Paul, like he did. But, I mean, a lot of good humor.
Oh, you pitiful thing.
Don't ever get into a word combat with Brother Harold. He will always win.
Sure enough.
He will. I think I only got him one time, a little bit, when I said that his preaching style was so infectious that at times it made me want to brush the hair.
If you just had some.
And he would not let that stand.
Oh, okay.
And so the next service, when he was speaking, he came back with his hair slicked down, I'm talking about, with some greasy solution. And that was his answer. But anyway, that was one of the, that's all I can think about. If you got into any discussion, it was over. He was going to have the last word.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your love for God. Thank you for your time that you spent editing this magazine. And thanks for the afternoon.
It was a
you for
pleasure.
all that you have done to make it possible.
Yeah, and thanks for the digitalizing and all that you did.
And thanks to you guys who are still trying to do it.
Absolutely.